Hello and welcome to this video tutorial. My name is Ryan Buck, and in this video tutorial we're going to go over tab 4 of the Design Staff Hour Estimation Forms, which is the Roadway Analysis tab. These updates were made in September of 2023, and it's been converted to this new format, what we're calling the calculated version. At the top, as you can see, you'll still enter in name. There's a section for signature and some of the project information will come. To the right is instructions on how to use this form, as long as a link to the library of video tutorials, including this one. And down at the bottom right is my contact information. If you need any assistance, find some errors, or need some help, please feel free to reach out to me. So we're going to dig in and go line item by line item just to give you a quick explanation of all these tasks and show you, highlight some of the changes that have been made in this last update. So the first thing we'll do to get started is, after you filled out the top, what is the overall project complexity right here? And you see the roadway guidelines. This is right here, this tab right here. You'll click there and you'll review some of this information and determine what level of complexity your project falls under, right? This could be part of the negotiation as well. So you click on the box right here, this highlighted red box, and what is the estimated complexity of the roadway? For this project, we'll just go ahead and say it was a mid, just C. So you click, and as you can see, any line items that use the parameter of project complexity automatically get filled in for you down below, as you can see mid right there. All right, well, let's dive in and get started. We'll just go line item by line item. The any cells that have red numbers or any kind of red indicate that there is something for you to input there. Anything in black is a locked cell. It's either text or has a calculation in it. So we'll start with 4.1, which is the typical section package. You've got a cover sheet, right? And so you'll click on the cell and enter in parameters about the project. So is a typical section package required for this project? Yes equals 1 and no equals 0. So for this project, we'll say yes. And this will recommend 6 hours, as you can see on the calculated for the cover sheet. Then you'll enter in the number of typical sections. Now, as you can see, there's 3 rows for typical sections, and these are based on different types of typical sections. So, for example, you would say the number of estimated simple typical sections being 2-lane flush shoulder or ramps. The next one is a standard typical section, which is defined as a 2-lane curved or multi-lane flush shoulder typical section. The last one is an estimated complex number of complex typical sections, limited access or multi-lane. And those definitions are right here. And we'll just go ahead and kind of enter in some. Let's say we have 2 simple. Let's say we don't have any 2-lane or curved or multi, but we do have 1 limited access. So let's just say we're just estimating. As you can see, the calculation, or calculated column right here is calculating hours based on the established guidelines. So reference the guidelines if you have any questions about those. But it is important to remember, and it says it up here and over here, that these calculated hours are a starting point for the negotiations based on the guidelines, and the consultant and the department negotiators will have to determine if those hours are accurate for that specific project. So you can go higher or lower than these calculated. These are just based on guidelines and the project parameters that you're entering about the project. So moving on, we'll continue to 4.2 pavement type selection report. Again, this is a report, so is the pavement type selection report required? 1 being yes, 0 being no. It won't let you enter in a 2, just to let you know. You'll get an error message. So you have to enter in a 1 or a 0. Again, if you don't have one, you'd leave it blank, but we'll just say we have one for this project. Now, this one you can see did not fill out as project complexity, and that's because it uses task complexity. And we use task complexity, as you can see right here. What is the complexity of the report? A simple is a memo, standard would be a typical report, and complex is a report with complex analysis. So you use the drop down and you can check simple, standard, or complex. Now, the reason we use task complexity against project complexity is sometimes a task can be complex when the overall project is simple, and sometimes or vice versa, it could be a very simple task even though the overall project is complex. So we'll just say the report is, we're just going to do a memo and it's going to recommend a number of hours. All right, moving on to 4.3, payment design package. Again, you've got the time for the report and assembly of 4.3 for the package. So yes or no, we'll say we're doing one. It already uses the mid because we told it up here that it's a mid project complexity. And then you'll do number of payment designs. Now there's 2 different payment designs, travel or auxiliary lanes, and then other roads and shoulders, being side roads or ramps or anything like that, right? So we'll just input, we'll say we have 2 payment designs for them and 2 for here. You can see it's starting to populate an estimate for you based on some of your input. And it's a quick initial estimate based on the guidelines and the project parameters. And then you'll have to determine, are these estimates correct, or do we need to adjust for this specific project? Then you've got your documentation column over here. It's the same as it has been, where you can document anything you need to. Documentation is key, and I think it's always good to document as much as possible about the project and how you got to the hours that you negotiated. 4.4, the cross slope analysis, lanes and shoulders. So in this case, as you can see, it's not a whole number. We've got some decimals. When you see this, that indicates that you're using a length or an area. So in this case, it's the length of the project in miles right there to be evaluated. So you're only entering in the length to be evaluated for that project for the cross slope analysis. We'll just say we have 2.5 miles of undivided roadway, or you could have, we'll just say we have a 1/2 mile of divided roadway in the project, and it'll start recommending some hours. As you can see, you get input, and then on this side, you can see, before I go down too far, you've got the department, so the consultant, and then the actual final negotiated hours for the project. So this allows the department to go ahead and fill out their initial hours. It allows the consultant to fill out their initial hours based on, the calculated. You could either agree with the calculated, or if you need to adjust up or down. And then you have your final negotiated. And you should be able to, if you're working in 2 different spreadsheets, just copy and paste one over to a kind of a master spreadsheet for the project manager. All right, moving on. Oh, I kind of missed the concepts for corrections right here. So the number of concepts to address the cross slope correction. So let's just say we have 3. Again, you could have one concept that addresses 3 different locations. So you just use one if that was all you had. So, all right, 4.5 is a new task called safety analysis. The HSM assessment was in reports, so it's been moved here. So is one required, yes or no? And then this is based on the task complexity. Is it just a simple, standard, or complex assessment? And then you've also got your crash analysis, right? So is a crash analysis required for the project, yes or no? We'll say we need one. And what is the complexity? Again, we'll put it there. And it'll start calculating hours. So I do want to say the crash analysis and some of the safety analysis it is a new task. A lot of the effort came from 4.9, which is the design variations and exceptions. So now the safety analysis is up in this task, and actually putting together the formal variations and exceptions, or the memo, is down in this task. 4.6, design analysis. So you've got monitoring existing structures is up here, yes or no. It's based on project complexity, and as you can see right there. And then you got your access management, so length of the project in miles to be evaluated. Just say, oh, what did that? We'll say we have 3 miles, yep, of project, and it's a mid-level project. 4.7 is called operational analysis. This was your final roundabout analysis. So it still has to do with roundabouts, and you would put the number of roundabouts in your design. Now you could have a 1x1 roundabout, a 1x2 roundabout, or a 2x2 roundabout in the project. So you just enter in the number of roundabouts. Just say we have 2 1x1s in this project, and that's your final roundabout analysis or operational analysis. 4.8 is design reports. So if you're doing a 3R report for the project, yes or no, still 1 or 0, and it's based on task complexity. And you get the drop down and fill it out. All right, there's also a section for other reports. I want to go over this. You don't enter in any parameters or complexity for other reports because we're not really sure what report you're doing. But let's just say, for example, you're going to do an ADA report for this project and you need 40 hours. As you can see in the calculated column, just to help populate your initial estimate, is red. And let's say this ADA report takes 40 hours. So you can put 40 hours right there, and over in the documentation you can say ADA report, 40 hours. All right. And that's how you would fill that out. All right, 4.9 is design variations and exceptions. I already mentioned about the safety analysis task up above. You can do and in this case for a variation memo, right? So you get your memo, your formal variation, and your design exception. So for the memo, it is right here. Let's just say estimated number of design elements contained in the variation memo. For this project, we're not going to do a memo. We'll do formal variation example, and this is just an example for this tutorial. So estimated number of design elements contained in the formal variation. All right, we'll put 2, and it'll recommend that, and then we'll have estimated number of design elements contained in the exception. I'll just say we have an exception. All right, and I'll calculate some hours. All right, now I want to get to what used to be 4.5, which is the horizontal vertical master design file. It's now 410 and 411. And 410 is the master design file setup and maintenance and model management plan. So this is the setup and maintenance of the design files throughout the life of the project, and then also a model management plan if you're doing 3D. This used to get some extra hours for the first mile. Those hours are now contained in 410. So is a design file setup required? In most cases it would be, so you need to put yes. And it's based on project complexity. Then you'll go down to your horizontal and vertical master design files. In order to estimate this, you would put in parameters of the project. So in this case, it would be the length of the main line of the roadway. This project, we'll say we have 3 miles. If there's any side roads and ramps, you would put the length of side roads and ramps. I'm just going to put some numbers here just so you can see it populate. Frontage roads, so any length of frontage roads. Again, I'm going to put some numbers there so you can see it calculate. If there isn't any, you would just leave it at 0. All right, so that is the horizontal vertical master design file, and here's the estimated hours. Now, it's important to note that this is based on 2D design. If you were going to do the project and deliver the project in 3D, you would need to fill out the 3D modeling development portion. And this is on top of the horizontal vertical master design file. So as mentioned, tab 36 in this release has gone away, so it doesn't exist. So all the 3D elements right here would be in this section, to add 3D elements to the design files. So, for example, let's say we're going to 3D model, a complete 3D model of the entire project. So in this case, we'd have our 3 miles, and we would also 3D model the 3 miles of main line and the half mile of the side roads right there. So this would deliver a complete 3D model. If you want more details about 3D modeling, there are Roadway 3D modeling guidelines tab right here. You can also just 3D model a partial segment of the project. Let's just say in this main line, we only want to 3D model a very complex intersection. And it is just about half a mile. And we don't need to model the side roads. So in this case, I'd enter in the half mile where the intersection is of the main line. And it's at mid, and it'll give me hours to model that section. There's also one more row for the 3D modeling development. That's the AMG files, right? So driveway, curves, ramps, and roadways. And so our AMG files required to be delivered. You'd say yes, and it would give you hours to deliver those AMG files. All right, moving on. 4.12 is the temporary traffic control analysis, right? So if we got any temporary traffic control, we would enter in the analysis right there. And then if we had the master design file, again, the master design file, there's a couple things right here. It is only used it would only be used for level 2 temporary traffic control, because it's assumed that level 1 temporary traffic control does not have a temporary traffic control plan. It would just have notes and details, which would be given on tab 5. So if you have like a low or below project, it will recommend 0 hours for this task right here of the design file, because it's assuming that you have level 1 and are not. Now you can override that by putting in the hours here if you need to, or you could change it the complexity of the project. But also I want to point out that the length of the master design file is in phase miles, and I have an example here. So it's based on the length of each major phase in total, right? So my example here is there's 4 miles of roadway and there's 3 major phases. So you have 12 miles. But you could have different lengths for different phases too. You could have a mile for the first phase and a half mile for the second phase and a half mile for the third phase. If you add those up, that would be 2 phase miles. All right. So let's just put in 2 phase miles. And then we have is their pedestrian temporary traffic control required. And this is based on task complexity. All right, if you do need to 3D model isolated locations of temporary traffic control, you would say the estimated location, let's just say the complex intersection for this project. And then we'd have we'd pick the complexity, which is a mid, although let's just say it's upper for this one. So you'd get your upper complexity of that modeling for that complex intersection for the temporary traffic control. All right, 4.13, moving on, data, utility data collection analysis. This is a new line item that's been added in this latest release. It's for utility data collection and analysis required, and it includes the UWS review if necessary. So we'll just say we get some utilities, and it's based on project complexity and recommends hours. 4.14 is the roadway quantities for EQ report. In this case, you would do the length of the project in miles. Say we had a 3 mile project. And then you would also enter in the number of interchanges or rest areas. We don't have anything. And then you've got validation. So if the EQ report's required, you would include setting up the report and validating the quantity. So if you're turning a report, you'd enter in that, and it would recommend some hours to validate the quantities. You also have the temporary traffic control quantities for the EQ report, and this is based on number of major phases. So let's just say we had 3 phases. And then it says right there, level 1, typically 2 to 3 major phases. We'll just have a standard, and it gives you some definitions. Coming down here, 415, you've got the cost estimate. So this is the engineer estimate, estimated number of engineering estimate submittals. Say we have 3. And it's based on the project complexity. And then the LRE updates is the estimated number of LRE updates, typically at phase 2, but sometimes for phase 1 as well. So we have 3 of those. 416 is the technical or modified special provisions. So you have the estimated number of TSPs or MSPs. And then any other roadway task that's not covered in the forms or guidelines, you would negotiate on a case-by-case basis and enter your hours here. Again, document what you're negotiating over here. Coming down to your non-technical subtotals, this is your QA/QC. It's turned on to 1 automatically, and it will automatically calculate 5% for you. Now, you don't have to use 5%, but that's what's recommended, and I think most districts use 5%. If you want to use something different in the negotiated tab, all of these will calculate 5% for you, but you can overwrite this one in red right here to say you want to use 3% or you want to use 7%. You're capable of doing that. You'll have to self-calculate it and enter in the number right here. Same thing for supervision. All right, meetings is 420, and you've got your meetings here. Now it's in black because you have this meeting table below, right? So you can enter in your number of meetings. Let's just say we have 2 meetings for typical section, 2 for pavement design, and we'll have our coordination meeting and a utility coordination meeting. As you can see, these meetings right here are starting, they populate right here. So anything in this cell will move up and carry up to these meeting cells. You also have travel time. If any of these meetings are in person and not virtual, you could potentially enter in travel time. So let's just say there's 2 hours of travel time for the typical section meeting, and 2 hours for the comment review meeting. As you can see, that 4 hours right there carries up to the travel time. So you got time for meetings, time for travel time. Now it's important to note that all meetings calculate at 2 hours per meeting per the guidelines. So please take this into consideration, as if you have to have multiple 8-hour meetings, you might have to add that up. Or if a lot of the meetings are really short, 30-minute virtual meetings, maybe you'll have to adjust accordingly. But it's going to recommend 2 hours per meeting. Then you have 4.21, which is your field reviews. We have a new table down here for field reviews. You got up to 4 field reviews and plans in hand field reviews, so 5. And in this case, you do number of staff for the field review. So say we need 2. And then we've got site time, so how much time each staff is going to be on there. So if I do 2 hours for each staff, that's going to be 4 hours. And then you got travel time per staff too. Let's just say it takes 1 hour to get to the site. That's how that'll calculate, and it'll carry up right here to this cell. Okay, and then you've got your coordination, which works very similar to QA/QC and supervision. It's going to calculate at 3%. You can turn it off if you want, 0, but it's going to be automatically on at 1. And it'll calculate. If you need to use something other than 3%, here's where you edit it. Again, if you have any questions, here's my contact information, or if you find any errors or mistakes or have any suggestions to make the tab better, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you for watching this video tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it.